Uh, and Jeff, I know it's a
Yeah.
bit disrupting, but can you shortly summarize what you were saying about your uh, meeting with Tim and tennis and selling, because it was corrupted with the sound and not easily hearable. So if you can just shortly summarize it, it would be great for the beginning.
Yes, will do. I was originally a tennis player, and I read The Inner Game of Tennis, and it had a tremendous impact on me and improved my game and a lot of other aspects of my life. And as time went on, I became a sales executive. I worked my way up in the selling profession to the point where I was vice president of sales and marketing for a large company. And I had a chance to meet Tim in person. And I told him what a great impression The Inner Game of Tennis had on me. And also, how about if we apply Inner Game to selling? There should be a way to apply it. I could use my sales force of over 100 salespeople as a laboratory. And then Tim and I began the process of converting the principles of Inner Game over to sales performance. And in the process, over the course of those 5 years or so, sales increased 10 times for the company, which is then I left and then I wrote my book. So that's how I got started with Tim in the Inner Game. Now I work with Tim full time, training sales forces on the Inner Game method to improve sales and enjoyment in the job and also learning. Okay, there we go.
Thank you very much. It was great. It was clear sound. So thank you very much. And I also mentioned, put some notes. You mentioned that you were a tennis player. So you were playing professionally, or it was recreational tennis playing, or?
No, I was ranked. I was ranked very high in the country. I'm still ranked top 50 in the country.
Really?
Yes, for seniors.
Interesting.
Yeah, 60 and over. Yeah, I take my antioxidants. So
okay, so you left tennis for sales.
Yes, I got a real job. Yeah. And actually, Tim and I have played tennis quite a few times together.
Yeah, you mentioned that on Tuesday when we were checking the connection, and I was curious about it. So you were playing regularly with Tim?
Yes, I was.
Before he moved.
Before he moved, yeah.
Before he moved,
which is too bad because I enjoyed our games tremendously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a different perspective. And I was also interested when you were mentioning this experiment in the sales company. Could you tell us more? I mean, how did you set up the experiments? What did you say to salespeople? Did they know what you are experimenting about?
No, they didn't know,
etc.
Yeah, no, they didn't know it was an experiment. But essentially, one of the first things Tim explained to me was that the inner game is really the outer game, and the outer game is really the inner game. Now that sounds like a mouthful, but I'll break it down for you here. If you watch Tim actually give a tennis lesson, what he'll say to the person, let's say they come to him complaining about a bad backhand, that guy, everybody hits the ball to my backhand because it's my worst shot and I hate when the ball comes to my backhand. Tim would say, okay, what I first want you to do is just a awareness exercise. Let's watch the seams of the ball. As I hit the ball to you, I want you to watch the seams as they move, as the ball's rotating. And as the student is watching the seams of the ball, they aren't noticing Tim's hitting to their backhand because they're so engrossed in the seams of the ball and paying attention that the self-doubt went away because they're no longer trying to hit a good backhand. They're just trying to describe what it looks like when they watch the seams of the ball. So if Tim, and he explained this to me, the seams of the ball are outer. And if you watch an inner game lesson, he'll do things to put people's attention outward, like notice the shape of your swing, or say bounce when the ball bounces and hit when it hits your racket. These are all outer. If Tim went inner, it would be saying something like, I want you to have more self-confidence. Don't doubt your backhand so much. That's an inner awareness, but it's not going to help because the person's just going to start thinking about how much thinking they're doing about their backhand, judging the thinking they're doing. So really, the application of the inner game to selling is going to be the same thing. What's the ball for a salesperson? Well, the ball is the customer. And what would be the seams of the ball? Well, the seams of the ball is the customer's decision process. So what I would do is I would turn the salesperson's thinking around. Yeah, I would deal with a new salesperson, and here I am, their manager, listening to them or watching them making a sales presentation. They're going to be nervous. They're going to have self-doubt because I'm watching. But if I say to them, instead of thinking about any doubts that you have, I don't want you to worry about selling them on this particular call. But what I want you to notice is if the customer has self-doubt. How confident is the customer in their ability to make a good decision? And I want you to notice if there are any indications about doubt. Well, the salesperson noticing the customer's doubt is going to provide the focus, like watching the seams of the ball. Because after all, if a customer has self-doubt, you're not going to get the sale. When I say inner game of selling, inner is not the salesperson's state of mind. Inner is the customer's state of mind, because the goal of selling is the customer's decision performance. Well, decision-making is inner. So the salesperson needs to focus on the decision process and all the different internal obstacles that customers might internally throw internally on themselves. Because most of your biggest obstacles to buying are self-imposed by the customer. Just like any other performance, whether it's acting or whether it's playing a sport, things like self-doubts, self-limiting beliefs are going to hurt the quality of the decision. Decision performance is a performance, and it could benefit from a coach. So in inner game, we say that the role of the salesperson is the customer's decision coach.
Yeah.
Now I can go on and on with this, but why don't you ask me a couple more questions, and
yes.
We'll go. Also from the audience, from the people listening too.
Exactly. It's what I warn everybody coming to Coach Café, that I am just opening the discussion with few questions, but then I am remaining silent, and other guests will ask questions. So I'd have the last one, which is kind of, I think this is more a statement for discussion than a question, but I mentioned you that I also worked as a salesperson many years ago, and sometimes I think there was a confusion with the coaching word, because my colleagues, salespeople, were thinking, okay, if the coaching is about asking questions, then if I learn coaching, I can ask good questions to my customers, and I can manipulate them to buy our stuff. And I think this can be a common misunderstanding, but I don't know, what is your experience? Do salespeople understand how they can use coaching and the inner game for their benefit?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Tim and I, in the process of bringing inner game to the selling profession, noticed right away that we need a major redefinition of what selling is at all. Okay, because salespeople, we saw, were trying to control what the customer did. And like I'm saying, we have this decision process. It's going on inside the customer's head. The salesperson can't hear it, what the customer's saying. So how can you control it? You're not in control. If you try to control what a customer's deciding, you get into a big power struggle. And this is why so many salespeople get burnt out or have bad customer relationships, because they're trying to control something that's really none of their business. The customer has all the control when it comes to the decision they make about buying your product, and that's not going to change. So our redefinition is that the customer's role, not the customer, the salesperson's role is to help customers make the best decision, whatever that decision's going to be.
I think this is dangerous thought, because the normal salespeople would tell you, no, I want them to buy my product, not the best decision, because maybe the best decision is not to buy my product.
Well, what happens, first thing, you have to be realistic. Why is a customer talking to a salesperson? What's in it for the customer? Okay, what's in it for the customer is the customer believes a conversation with a salesperson is going to help them make a better decision. Okay, that's what the customer wants.
Yeah.
Okay, if the salesperson has another agenda, then you don't have a team. You have two different goals. And this is why the selling profession to this day has a negative stigma. Mm-hmm. That salespeople are pushy and they're not really helpful, because the salesperson wants one thing and the customer wants another thing, and it's not going to work. And this is especially important now in the digital age, because most purchases are being made without salespeople. You know, customers don't need salespeople anymore for purchasing. You could just go online. And so unless the salesperson has something of value to offer, which is to help improve the quality of the decision you're making, customers are not going to want to talk to a salesperson. So yes, what we found is that there's nothing better than having this real team, working as a team with your customer, because you share the common goal of wanting the customer to make the best decision. Then you are in the best position to learn what's going on with the customer, because the customer is going to be honest and upfront and give you more information. They're not going to be withholding, because that's what the customer wants from the salesperson. They want to. They trust the salesperson. Yeah. So the salesperson gets more out of the interaction.
It's true, and I would say, but still, I may be concerned that I can be a great decision-making process coach for my client, but what if he decides to buy other service or product because I am paid for selling my products? So still considering this internal barrier, if you were mentioning the redefinition of the sales, I think
Mhm.
it is a also task for sales managers because they probably should reframe or rephrase also their job and their goals for their
Yeah,
people.
yeah, they do need to reframe their job, but let's get back to your original point. There's another aspect to this question, and it has to do with learning. Okay. Uh, the learner never fails. So the salesperson's goal really is to be able to learn as much from the interaction as possible so they improve as salespeople. Okay, you're playing the long game. You're wanting over time to be a better and better salesperson. And you need to learn how to really get the most information from customers as possible so you could respond. Maybe the best response is to go back to product development and say, hey, customers are purchasing other products for this reason. The customer was very honest with you. You're able to give product development important information that's going to help make the product more attractive to more customers. So maybe it's that kind of learning. But if I show you the basic inner game principle here, and I have a little chart. Okay. Okay, we perform by learning and we learn by observing. So as we become better observers, we become better learners. As we become better learners, we become better performers.
Mm-hmm.
An inner game coach is essentially an observation coach. Now, I mentioned one thing that's going to improve a salesperson's ability to observe is if the customer knows the salesperson's wanting to help them make the best decision. The customer's going to be more forthcoming. The salesperson's going to be getting a lot more information than if the customer is suspicious that the salesperson has another agenda. Okay, that's the first thing about observation, which will improve learning. Okay, the second thing that's even more important is that the learner never fails. If my goal isn't to sell the product in a particular interaction with a customer, a particular appointment I have to sell the customer, and my goal is about learning as much as I can rather than selling the product, I control that.
Yeah,
we're talking about the customer has the control. Well, if your goal is to sell the product, yeah, the customer does have control. They have ultimate decision-making authority.
And
but
money.
yes, they have the money. But if your goal is to learn as much from the conversation as possible, then the salesperson takes control of getting as much from the selling interaction as they wanted to. And that's how the salesperson gains control. I'll tell you a personal story. One of the biggest insights I had converting inner game to sales performance came from a sale that I lost. But I was the learner. What happened was I got my manager to agree for me to present a really low price, a crazy low price on a particular product to a customer. And when I presented this price, and I was so happy I was able to present this low price, the person got really angry at me and said, "You must be using cheap raw materials," and slammed the door in my face. Didn't want to talk to me. And I was shocked. But that's, as a learner, I realized, okay, well, what happened? Well, what happened was that we were talking two different languages. In my language, low price meant good value. In his language, low price meant poor quality. And I wasn't speaking his language. And that gave me a major insight. So am I sorry I lost that sale? No, it was good that I lost that sale. It made me a better salesperson for the rest of my career.
Yeah, very good learning. I understand.
Yes, yes. So it's about learning, which gets back to the basic inner game principle. We perform by learning and we learn by observing. Observation and performance are linked by learning. Now, another thing, Mikhail, that you were asking me had to do with managers. And it gets back to the same principle. Because managers don't want salespeople thinking about the training when they're in the middle of a conversation with a customer. The manager, that becomes a distraction. If a salesperson is trying to get the interaction to be similar to what they were trained, they're distracted. Because the customer didn't go to the training.
Yes, I got it.
Yeah. The customer's not going to know. So, you're not going to have an aware interaction with the customer. The salesperson's going to be distracted by their training. So a good sales trainer will teach the salesperson to learn how to learn from their customers. So it gets right back to learning again.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to my original point, which is that the role of the salesperson is to help customers make the best decision, whatever that decision might be.
Thank you. And I'm remaining silent to open the discussion for others, because I would be discussing that further. So I stop myself.
Okay. Yes, it's good self-control. Any questions from our guests?
Or comments, or
comment.
As in a cafe or restaurant, if we discuss things, we agree, disagree, ask questions. So you can even make some comments, not to ask questions. Just
there is a lot of interesting points of views, so it's hard to formulate some question, because it's quite interesting for me.
I would have a question if I can. Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Thank you so much for all you say. It's such important things you just mentioned, and I have read one article you wrote, and you spoke about self-report of the customer, that it's about his self-report. And I would like to ask you, could you give us some, let's say, practical tips how to be this, let's say, decision coach for this customer to help somehow with this, to establish this self-report, or how should we behave, practically, or if you have some concrete tips.
Yeah, I do have some concrete tips. The first thing is there's a difference between coaching and trying to coach. Okay. Coaching somebody can take any form, but if you say, I'm going to coach you now, if you say that to a customer, it's not going to be received very well. They, because it implies that something they're doing needs to be changed. But if you ask them a question, you're coaching because they hear the answer too. So one thing I like to do, and this I got from Tim Gallwey's tennis lesson, is one of the things he would say to somebody he's teaching tennis is, watch the trajectory of the ball. Okay, so what's the trajectory of the ball for your customer? Well, it's their decision process. And there's a story. Customers have a buyer's journey, you could say. First thing is they somehow get in touch with a need, and then they do some research, and then they see there's something in a category that they're looking for. And then within the category, there's going to be a certain number of choices to make of different brands, and then they choose one brand, and then they're looking, it's a bit of a journey. And if you just take maybe a step back, if I don't know what you're selling, but I'm sure your buyer, has a journey where they arrive to a conversation with you. Tom, hi. Maybe take a step back and say, just something as simple as, well, what brings you here? Or why did you decide that you needed something like this? And, start just getting them to talk about their decision process, because they made a decision to talk to you. And they made a decision to look into the category, and they made a decision that they need a solution, and they made a decision. There's all these different decisions that they've made, the little sub decisions leading up to the big decision. And you want to find out as much as possible, both for yourself and for them, because as they hear, they get a chance to review. So that's one tip I have, which is a nice thing to talk about because you're not on the subject of buying your product. So when I'm doing talks and I say to an audience of non-salespeople who hates to sell, and I get people raising their hand, they just hate to sell. And then I say, who in this audience thinks they hate to sell more than anybody else in the room? And somebody raises their hand. You go, okay, tell me why you think you hate to sell more than anybody else in this room. And they'll say, well, I can't stand being pushy and manipulating people, and they think I'm gonna, try to. And it's just not my type, and it's just the last thing I want to do. Then I say to the room, okay, who is convinced that this person hates to sell more than anybody else in the room? And people raise their hand, yeah, they're convinced. And I say to this person, good job, you just sold us on how much you hate to sell. That wasn't so hard. What's hard is trying to sell. They were describing trying to sell. Yeah, selling itself is very easy. I mean, if I was walking down the street with you and I look over my shoulder, I see a beautiful double rainbow. What's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to point it out. to share something that you're excited about with somebody else is very natural. And yeah, I have a 3-year-old granddaughter. She is an awesome salesperson. And nobody ever trained her, but she will always close. Whenever she wants something, she won't just say it, she'll close you on it. And she handles objections brilliantly. And she knows how to seek alternative decision makers if she doesn't get what she wants. Yeah, selling's a very natural thing. It's when we think about trying to sell, oh, I have to sell this person, that it becomes hard, that it becomes a lot of work. And so what we're doing with Inner Game is pointing out, well, it's really not about selling, it's about buying. So you could relax. You don't have to try to sell. If the customer doesn't have a clear goal and they're confused and distracted, there's nothing you can say. Trying to sell is not going to help. Let's see if we could facilitate this buying process instead. And so that's really, in a nutshell, what the approach is about. Yeah. So, back to your original question, practical steps. There's something called the Inner Game ACT triangle. I'm not sure you're familiar with it, but I have a little chart here. Okay. So performance is a combination of these 3 factors: awareness, choice, and trust. So now I could say to you, tell me a decision you made that didn't turn out very well. And you'll tell me the story. And no matter what story you tell me, we could even try it. No matter what story you tell me, it would boil down to a lack of either awareness, choice, or trust. Can you see it? There's only 3 things that performance requires: awareness, choice. Oh, you can't see it? Well,
yes, we can see it. We can see it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Awareness, choice, and trust. Okay. And each point has its interference. So the interference to trust is self-doubt. The interference to choice would be self-limiting beliefs. And the interference to awareness would be lack of awareness or being distracted. And any story you tell me about a decision that didn't work out so well would boil down to one of these 3 things. Either you lacked sufficient awareness, you lacked sufficient choice, or you lacked sufficient trust. These 3 things. So what I suggest is, being very practical, is when you're talking to customers, notice which of these 3 things, and you can read more about them in the Inner Game of Work, or there's more about it in my book, Selling to the Point, by the way, where I talk about the 3 factors. Is this customer lacking in confidence? Does this customer have a self-limiting belief that they don't empower themselves to make a decision? Or does the customer lack self-awareness? They're not in touch with their need. So this is what I suggest when you're talking to a customer, is try to identify which of these 3 things or combination of these things that the customer needs. And then you could begin seeing, oh, well, in order to make a good decision, they need to be more aware of that need, or they need to be more aware of they're harboring a self-limiting belief that I can't make a decision without my mommy here. Or, so I mean, the self-limiting belief thing, that's very big, because salespeople are in the choice business, right? I mean, what we're essentially doing is presenting a greater range of options for customers to solve their problems. And so we're going to run up against these self-limiting beliefs. Well, there's not enough money in my budget for that. Or I have to get my manager before I could agree to that. And really, getting customers to see that they could be more aware of a greater range of options to find solutions is what the salesperson's job is really all about. So I talk to a lot of salespeople, and when I say choice is important, they'll agree with me that, oh yeah, choice, self-limiting beliefs, this is a big thing in my job. That's why I want to talk to the customer who's highest on the company org chart, like the company vice president, because they have the highest range of choice. They have the most decision-making ability. But what the salesperson doesn't understand is the positional authority is outer choice. You could sit down with that executive and they may say something like, oh yes, but I have to answer to the board, and then I have shareholders, and then I have regulators, and I can hardly make any decisions. They have low internal choice. And the same is true for awareness. Yeah, if I talk to a salesperson about awareness, they're going to say, oh, it's very important, because I need the customer to be aware of why my product is so good, all the features that it offers. Well, that's outer awareness. So what about the customer's self-awareness? Does the customer know what they need? If the customer doesn't know what they need, how could they ever know how your product's features will satisfy that need? So inner awareness comes first. Self-trust comes first. Yeah, a salesperson says, I want to earn the customer's trust. Well, if the customer lacks self-trust, they won't trust themselves to decide if they could trust the salesperson. Salesperson won't get trust. So the inner game in that customer is primary. And it's just a matter of turning your attention around from outer to inner.
Thank you, Terka. Is it
yeah, thank you very much.
practical for you?
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just translating that to some. It's part of a joke that I can ask a customer, okay, how is your self-trust today? It's a joke. It's a joke.
Yes. Your self-trust. Yeah, you don't trust yourself very much, do you?
Yes.
I don't know.
Further questions or comments?
Yes.
Okay, so from my side. Hi, Jeff, nice to see you again.
Hi, Branislav. Good to see you.
For me, it's interesting one point, and we already discussed about this, but right now, I found it's interesting things because the sale is always to sell something, but I think that the most important things what I understood is to refrain from the sale, focus to keep the relationship with the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so something what if you have the relationship with the customer, if you follow this let's say the conversation, yeah, you have the chance to continue with the sales in the future. Yeah, so
Yeah.
what do you think about this, or what is your experience? Yeah, because it's normally my experience, their experience, if someone wants to sell something to me, is just focused, okay, on my needs, but as well just sell, yeah, sell and the finish.
Well, let's make it inner, because your relationship with your customer's relationship with you and your relationship with your customer, that's outer. And that's nice, but let's not forget the customer's relationship with themselves. I mean, that's really inner. Okay. I talked to somebody in the travel business, and there are customers that don't feel empowered to reward themselves on a vacation, on a trip. Okay. They beat themselves up. They need to work hard. They don't deserve a vacation. And that's something that travel salespeople run up against. But really, a customer who's, if you play a role in helping the customer feel better about themselves and their ability as a decision maker, and getting in touch with their needs and giving themselves permission to grant themselves a higher quality of life, how would you feel about a person that did that for you?
Yeah, it is always much better. Yeah, so it's something different than the standard approach. Yeah, so if someone is, let's say, his interest is about me, not about to sell the product. Yeah,
Yes.
I agree. It's much better always.
Yeah, that's when we take our awareness and put it inward. We're not even trying to get the customer to like us. We're not trying to get the customer to, this trying thing, it's really a trap. Okay, if I'm trying to sleep, am I sleeping? If I'm trying to study for a test, am I studying? If I'm trying to get you to like me, is that sincere? It doesn't feel very good. If I'm trying to build a rapport so that, you know, we could have a long-term relationship. I'm trying to do that. It's really not genuine. If you are just witnessing the customer's self-awareness to be able to see who they are and, you know, take care of their needs in a particular way that maybe they weren't giving themselves permission, and you facilitated that process. You weren't trying to get them to like you, but that's even better.
Yeah, it's remembering me, let's say, the old-fashioned tactics for the good sellers. Discuss about you, about life, and by the way, sell something. Yeah, so
yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's an agenda, and it makes salespeople, first thing, they get burned out because you're trying to control something you have no control over. So you see, by trying to sell something, you're sabotaging the relationship, and then you're wanting the benefits of a good relationship when your very actions are sabotaging. No wonder there's so much stress in selling. You're working against your own purpose. Yeah, so.
I had to write it down. I had to write it down because trying to control what you don't control leads to burnout.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. So we covered the 3 important points of inner game, which is performance, enjoyment, and learning. You know, I think I have a little chart here.
My favorite triangle.
Yes. But it's not just about performance. It's also about learning, like I said. And it's also about enjoyment. Because salespeople enjoy being a part of that process of customers becoming aware and being able to play a role in that. The other thing is when you're talking about inner, is that an inner decision that's made with very little or hardly any salesperson intervention is a higher quality decision, because the decision to buy is now integrated with the customer's own beliefs and values. Now, this is very important because salespeople are looking for sustainable decision-making. If a customer buys a product because I was so dynamic and I was so intelligent and the customer really liked me, it's not sustainable because I'm going to leave. And now the customer has the product, but because they bought the product because of me, they're less likely to use the product after I've gone, or reorder the product, or tell friends about the product, or tell competitors to get lost. You know, what if another competitor who's just as dynamic as me presents to the customer? I'll lose the sale. But if the salesperson allows the customer to buy for their own reasons, and the customer sees how this product aligns with their own internal beliefs and values, you have a much more sustainable sale. So this is very important, inner, making decisions from the inside.
I think this is also very helpful if I imagine this company structure, and I would say that even lower middle manager, if he or she decides with her or his values, then he or she is ready to sell her decision to their managers, even they may not have the decision-making power.
That's a very good point. A lot of times you end up talking to somebody who can't ultimately make the decision. But if they're bought in, they could perpetuate that to the next person. So there's another very good point.
Any other question or comment from the audience? Because I have some question for the end, so I will ask it when the time comes in. So if there is any other question or comment, I still leave for the audience. We still have some time, but I'm also keeping my eyes on watch to be prepared for the next round on Clubhouse. We still have about 20 minutes, but okay. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have one practical question, Jeff. So we are talking about, let's say, the different approach for the sales, yeah, for different mindset for the salesperson. It's
Yes.
not all the standard. The most of the salesperson they have the bad habits, as we discussed, or as you described. So how long it takes to change this mindset? If you, from your experience, if you train the salesperson, how long it takes?
Yeah.
That they start really be efficient in this process.
Oh, it's very fast. It's very fast because we just have them focus on something else. I mean, attention is instant. You know, you want to turn your attention from outer to inner. I could just do an exercise with a salesperson, getting their mind off of selling and onto the buying. And, you know, we have a change right there on the spot. Now, how long are they going to maintain the change? It just depends on their personal conviction. But we see changes very quickly with salespeople that are bought in to wanting to help the customers make the best decision. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So my question.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Final one. I was interested, why did you use the selling to the point title? What does it mean?
Well, the point of selling is buying. When a salesperson is focused on selling, they're missing the point.
Clear.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, here's a question you could ask me. Why is your book a story?
Huh?
Go on, ask me.
Okay. Why is your book a story?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Now, I wrote my book as a story because of this. Okay. We perform by learning and we learn by observing. An inner game coach is an observation coach. So, what is the medium that salespeople observe? The medium of observation for salespeople is conversation. It's dialogue. That's what salespeople are observing. So, I wanted to give salespeople the experience of learning from observation. So I made my book a novel. It's a fiction story with a plot. It's got romance. And I did that because I don't teach the principles in the book. The principles emerge from the conversations between the characters, allowing salespeople to learn a whole new approach to selling just by observing conversation.
So observation.
Yes, experience of observation.
One more question.
Okay.
What is your favorite part of the book?
When
of
they
the
fall.
story, of the story.
Oh, that's a good question. My favorite part of the story. I think it's towards the, I think it's when the character realizes he's looking at the world differently. Yeah, he has a nephew who's on the autistic spectrum. And So the nephew would say things that are very different in a different way. Like the nephew would be filling up the glass of water and his uncle would say, "What are you doing?" And he would describe it as, "Well, I'm watching the distance between the water and the top of the glass." That's how he would describe filling a glass of water, or the mother would say, "Well, why are you sitting there not doing anything?" It's like, "I'm doing lots of things. I'm breathing, my heart's beating." He just had a different way of looking at things. And when his uncle said, "Well, I'm a salesman." So, "Well, what's that?" "Well, I, have people buy things and then they pay me." And he goes, well, but then why do they call it selling?" And it's really opened his eyes, and it changed his whole perspective on how he's been training salespeople in his company. So I think that's one of my favorite parts of the book.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeff.
Yes, thank you, Mikhail.
So thank you, everybody. I would call this meeting finished for now. And if you like to continue, you just switch to the clubhouse at 9. In 15 minutes, we meet with Jeff, the other group, and we will cover probably similar or maybe some completely different things. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. So
Yes.
thank you for now, and we meet each other quite early in 15 minutes.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting.
Okay,
Thank you.
Great. Glad you liked it. Okay,
Thank you
let's
very
be in
much.
touch.
Okay.
Yeah, drop me on LinkedIn and we'll link up.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay.
good. Okay, take care.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jeff.
Have a nice evening. Bye-bye. Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, Mikhail, I'll see you in 15